Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Am I a YouTuber now? Thank you so much for 8,000 subscribers. That means so much to me. I can't believe that so many of you guys are here. I also want to thank you all for all of the love and support on my previous video. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'm really thankful that you're here. If you're new here, my name is Sarah. I'm a regional airline pilot, and today I'm going to be covering one of my most requested videos, which is my flight training journey and how I got to become an airline pilot at 21 years old. I'm 22 now. I've been at the airlines for a little over a year, and I've been loving every single second of it, from the good, the bad, the ugly, and I just want to share my experience and explain how I got to where I am now, and hopefully I'll be able to provide you with some insight just in case you're interested in flight training as well. So to get straight to the point, I started flight training when I was 16 years old, and I'm gonna bring up one of my old paper logbooks here. If you take a look here, my first ever entry was June of 2016. This was when I did my discovery flight. From that point on, I started taking lessons to start working on my private pilot's license, or my PPL. At that point, I did realize that aviation was something that I wanted to pursue as my career. That fall, I moved to Bakersfield, California to attend a Part 141 university, and I lived there for the next 3 years to complete the rest of my flight training as well as to get my bachelor's degree. If you're unfamiliar with what a Part 141 school is, it's essentially a pilot school with a structured training syllabus and outline that's been approved by and is closely monitored by the FAA. Flight training at a Part 141 school is a little bit more structured than if you were to go Part 61, which is a little less stringent and more at your own pace and leisure. So by going through a 141 program, it allowed me to accelerate through my training, and I was able to apply at the airlines a little quicker than if I hadn't gone through that same route. So I want to go back to the beginning where I said that I started flight training when I was 16 years old. I've gotten a lot of questions asking me how I got into aviation, and I want you to take a wild guess. I'm sure you'll get it right. I have family in aviation. My dad is a pilot himself, and my mom is a flight attendant. I grew up around the airline lifestyle because of my parents, and although I know that kind of lifestyle isn't for everyone, I naturally grew an interest for it and knew that I wanted to follow in my dad's footsteps and be a pilot ever since I was in elementary school. I started taking lessons at my local flight school, and I do recommend that if you're interested in aviation, that you do the same. Flight schools do what is called an intro or a discovery flight. On these flights, you're able to go up with a flight instructor and fly an airplane for the first time to get a feel for what flight training is like. Also, by going through a flight school, you're able to take a few lessons, and you'll be able to determine if flight training is something that you want to pursue or not without having to commit to anything. After getting my private pilot's license, I did know that this was something that I wanted to continue with. So then I decided to commit to a Part 141 program, and that's when I moved to Bakersfield, California. One thing that really stood out to me about this school was that it was a 3-year program where I was able to get my BS in aeronautics as well as get my instrument rating, commercial, CFI, II, and multi-engine rating within that time period. However, one thing that I do want to mention is that because you're doing so much within a short amount of time, you don't get any breaks. We didn't get a spring, summer, or fall break. We only had a 2-week-long winter break, and that was it. I didn't really do much outside of school besides study, go to the gym, and hang out with my friends there, but honestly, I can say that it was worth it. I became a flight instructor in November of 2019, and from that point, I could start teaching other students how to fly, and that's how I built the majority of my hours. I taught at my school, and I think that that was really helpful because I was already familiar with the training program. I actually reached my 1,000-hour requirement in December of 2020, and I have a little note here to kind of just remember that this was my flight, and this is when I had met my restricted ATP requirement. So it took me a little over a year to build my hours, and which in my opinion I thought was super quick. What I also found to be helpful was that by getting my PPL outside of a Part 141 training program, I was able to take my time in learning how to fly planes and learning how to get into the groove of flight training without having to feel the pressure of a more rigorous 141 program. Now let's fast forward to 2021. 2021 was a year of a lot of growth and change for me. I graduated from college, met all of my restricted ATP requirements, and had applied to my first ever airline that summer. After the interview, I got my official class date for initial training for the end of September. That was when I started a whole new phase of learning about the airline world and how to fly an Embraer 175. Airline training in total was about 2 months. I spent it in Denver and St. Louis. After taking my check ride, I officially became an airline pilot. After taking your check ride, you go through something called IOE, which stands for Initial Operating Experience. And it's basically a period to help you transition from flying in the simulators to flying the line, as we call it in aviation, where you're a normal working pilot flying with different crews. During IOE, you fly with someone called a line check airman, who is essentially a special captain that's qualified to provide you with training, experience, and he evaluates you to ensure that you're demonstrating safety and the appropriate skills to be flying the line. At the end of IOE, you do something called a line check, which is essentially a normal flight from point A to point B, except you're being evaluated by the check airman, who can then sign you off. And at that point, you're like a bird leaving the nest, and you can begin normal line flying operations. I've been flying the line for a little over a year now, and it's been a great experience, and I've been able to learn so much. I want to get into some Q&A related to this topic. I apologize if I'm not able to get to your question in this video. I'm going to try to get to them in another video or respond to you in the comments. Okay, so question number 1, what inspired you to become a pilot? Any beginning tips for young women who want to pursue being a pilot? As you may know now, I have family in aviation. My dad is my #1 inspiration and the sole reason why I wanted to become a pilot in the first place. And if it weren't for him, I don't think that being a pilot would have been something that would have ever crossed my mind. As for my tips for young women who want to pursue aviation, I think that finding other women in aviation to connect with and form genuine friendships with is really important. It'll make your flight training experience a lot more enjoyable and relatable. I know that it can feel intimidating being a woman in a male-dominated field. Even I've had things said about me like, oh, she only passed her check ride because she's a girl. And I constantly felt this pressure of needing to prove myself to others, and that's just not the way to go. If I continued to think this way, I would have just burnt myself out because I was putting all of this energy into the wrong things for the wrong reasons. I think it's really important to just focus on your own journey. Don't mind what any negativity is being said about you, if there is any, and instead use it as something that empowers you. So the point that I want to make with this is that I know it can be intimidating. That's why I think it's so important to befriend and form connections with other women in aviation. It just helps give you that little extra confidence, and having that kind of support from people who can also relate to you does so much. Question number 2, would you recommend getting a bachelor's degree before becoming a pilot? And I think that getting a degree can only help you, but it's not necessary. As you may know, many airlines have dropped the requirement to have a degree, and it's now only a preferred item. I think that if you have the time and funds for one, it can only help you, and it'll help you look a little bit more competitive. However, many people are getting hired without a degree, and it's definitely not required anymore. What is most important is definitely your flight experience. All right, last question. Did you work while in flight school, or do you have any jobs you'd recommend? Also, if you know how to connect with other pilots when in flight school, that would help too. As you may know now, yes, I simultaneously worked as a flight instructor while working towards my other ratings and my degree. I personally do recommend being a flight instructor. I really enjoy teaching others and seeing them progress. I think that by becoming one, I myself was able to grow and learn so much as a pilot. I also built time like crazy flight instructing. I worked 5 days a week from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then I would switch sometimes from 2 p.m. all the way until midnight teaching instrument students. If flight instructing isn't something that you're interested in, there are tons of other great options for you to build your time, such as skydiving, crop dusting, aerial survey, or some kind of cool Part 91 gig. As for connecting with other pilots, I think that forming study groups was like the #1 way I made friends at school. We would all just get together after class and talk and study. Through that, I was able to form genuine connections and real friendships with people who are all in the same boat as me. I've also made a lot of my other friends through social media. I myself am pro social media. Obviously, I'm here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all the things. And I think it's a great way to connect with other people if you're using it the right way. Alright guys, so this was my personal flight training journey. I just want you to know that there are so many other ways to go about flight training, and you don't need to do what I did. There are so many different options available now. For example, you could do all of your training at a local flight school. You could go the military route, go through an accelerated program like ATP, or you could go through a 141 program like I did. I know that United Airlines also has their United AV Academy, which is great if you're interested in flight training, and through that program you'll be able to be on a path to getting hired at United Airlines, which I think is awesome. So there's many different options out there, and there's not one way to go about flight training. You just need to do your research and find out what would work best for you and your lifestyle. Thank you so much for watching. Again, all of the support and encouragement means everything to me, and I wish you all nothing but health, happiness, and success for 2023, and I'll see you guys in the next video.